Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beginner's Mind series, wherein this is what we try to do. We try to follow the Zen philosophy of putting aside everything that we know and approaching accomplished people across the world with a beginner's mind. That is, setting apart all that I may think I already know, and for the viewers as well, I request you to do the same. Set apart anything that you know very well and follow this Zen philosophy, which is a beginner's mind. Let us be good listeners. Usually, I'm the one doing a lot of talking, but today I'll be the one who will be doing the listening, the active listening today. Our accomplished guest today, Mr. Yogesh Chhabria. First of all, let's please, Yogesh, thank you for being here. We welcome you. Thank you for taking out your precious time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Yogesh is an entrepreneur, best-selling author, award-winning speaker, and one of India's top business success and life strategists. And millions of people have enjoyed and benefited from his business and self-development events, seminars, books, and programs, and so have major corporations across the world. He has been felicitated as Mumbai University's most distinguished alumni. That is quite an accomplishment there, Yogesh. And one of the world's most loved and sought-after speakers, authors, and investors, and founder of the Happiness Way. Welcome. It is such a pleasure to have you here. We welcome you with a virtual applause. Thank you so much. Thank you. My honor.
Yogesh, why don't we start with, I want to start with your journey. I want to pick your brains today for the benefit of other aspiring motivational speakers, and also for people who are following you, and for youngsters who feel they are lost, for people who have lost their jobs at the moment, for those whose businesses are not doing well. It's a very tough time the country is going through at the moment, but I am hopeful and optimistic that something good will emerge from our conversation here today. And I want to begin with your journey. Yogesh, you're an accomplished man. At quite a young age, you've achieved a lot. At the age when most youngsters still figuring out how to play with toys, you were selling toys. Talk to us about your journey, about your entrepreneurial journey, and then about your speaking journey.
I think, Simranjit, whenever we are faced with a challenge, there is a force that also helps us find a solution. Mm-hmm. So, talking about toys, so we belong to the Sindhi community. So we are Sindhis. My wife is a Punjabi. I know you are a Punjabi. And I remember, there's a joke the Punjabis say, if you see a snake and a Sindhi, first you should kill the snake and then the Sindhi. But it's a joke. And I'll tell you also the history where this comes from. So the Sindhis, before partition, we were in Sindh, and my grandparents, suddenly partition happened, and overnight they had to leave everything. So overnight, they had to leave their money, their property, their gold, everything, and they came to India. And, when we were young, we didn't have a lot of money. And that is also one of the reasons, because Sindhis were willing to do anything for financial, gains. So they would, students would sell papad on the train, on the bus. And growing up, so I was born in the 80s. When were you born, Simranjit?
1979.
73. So I was born a little later than you. And,
there you go. I'm giving away my exact age now. With all this speculation on Google, how old is Simranjit Singh?
Well, what is your birthday?
No. Not on a life. Birthday.
Birthday.
21st of January.
21st of January. Right, very good. So,
are you going to be running some numerology thing now on me?
No. Asking, So my wife is born on 6th February.
Okay.
But anyway, growing up, in those days, India was a closed economy. And, to get a phone line, you had to wait for a year. To get a TV, you had to wait for 1 year, 2 years. And in those days, my dad was working, he had a job. But to supplement his income, he used to go out in the neighborhood and ask people, do you want a TV? Do you want a washing machine? And some people would say yes. So he would take some money, load up his margins, and go to Dubai or Singapore, which were free zones. and buy these products and get it to India to sell. And in addition to that, they would also bring other things. So they would bring these Yardley powders, soap, all sorts of things. And in a small house, on the bed, I would be given the task of putting these price stickers. So there used to be these yellow stickers. I used to stick it. And I remember, I was subconsciously probably learning about business and sales. And I remember they had got me a remote controlled car. It was one of those wired remote controlled.
Every young boy's dream, remote control.
Yeah,
back in the 80s. And right, I know now the Chinese goods have flooded it, but back then it was very hard to get hold of one. It's like,
yeah, because in Mumbai, used to have only wooden toys like a flute, and the toy guy used to walk under the house and shout, "Khilone le lo," and used to go buy some toys. You grew up in Jalandhar?
I grew up in Batala in district Gurdaspur, so a border town, a rural small town.
Okay.
Yeah.
These toys were not there. So I used to play with it, but like anything new, you get bored. So even today, if you get a phone or you get anything, human psychology is after some time, 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, you get bored of it and you want a new phone, a new car, whatever. I got bored of it, and I went to my friend and I would just tell them, hey, try it out, play with it. So they used to play with it. And after some time, I used to take it from them and I'd say, there's so many kids, even they want to play with it. But if you want it, I'd be happy to sell it to you. And I would tell them a price and they would go to their parents. And their parents, most of the time, parents give in to their children's indulgence. And they said, okay, buy it. And that's how I made my first sale. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed it because I realized sales is so democratic, My age doesn't matter whether I'm 5, 35, 45, 95. I think I'll always be selling something or the other. Sex doesn't matter. My gender doesn't matter. Education doesn't matter. So I really enjoyed it. Since then I've been selling. I used to sell in school. I'm still selling something or the other.
Fantastic. So you saw an opportunity there. You were bored with your existing toys, so you started selling. Which is great. So which is what we talk about as keynote speakers and and influencers and inspirational speakers, isn't it? If you find an opportunity, go grab it. You don't need an invitation. I think Dhirubhai Ambani, this is coming from him. He said, ideas are no one's monopoly. Ideas belong to the person who executes them. And that is what your childhood demonstrates. Fantastic example there, Yogesh. We do get bored with stuff. And I think that leads to me to another very important conclusion. If we are trying to make sense of our journey by acquiring stuff, right? The new car, the new house, the new clothes, the new label, the new etc. The reality is we just need to rewind it back to our childhood. We are going to get bored with it pretty soon. The joy, the thrill is going to be there for a few hours. And then it happens with my daughters all the time, Yogesh. So there's a lot of battle around, who's going to get what for the birthday. So what I try and do is I set some, so they got to do household chores. They'll get some pocket money. They'll save up some money. And then my elder one wanted the Peppa Pig house, right?
Oh,
which,
okay.
Yeah, which was
Peppa Pig
about...
popular, right?
It was slightly expensive. And so I told her, I said, look, you can afford it if you work hard. So for a whole, I made them wait for a good year in order to buy that thing, doing household chores, putting in the money in their piggy bank so that they value when they get it. If you just hand it down to them, there was this video going viral of some guy who's bored in his class, and this is what he does. He takes a MacBook Air Pro and he just twists it around the other way around and smashes it. And the video's gone viral. I was bored in class, so what did I do? Well, we as young kids, what would we do? We would tear up a piece of paper if we were not enjoying the session or very angry at the teacher. This guy smashes a $2,000 plus or $1,500 plus MacBook Pro, and the video's going viral. And the top comments, I read them just out of curiosity, and this is what they said. They said that he probably didn't earn it. It was handed down to him, and probably maybe this is the third or fourth one. So great lesson there for everyone who's watching right now from Yogesh's childhood about selling those toys. So your entrepreneurial journey started very early, Yogesh. I'm happy to hear that.
How old are your daughters, Simaji?
My daughters are now 10 and 8.
10 and 8. So my son just turned 4 years old.
Okay.
And kids really don't need a lot of toys, So for his birthday, he got like 2 polos. So he said, I want 2 polo, some balloons, and
just balloons. He's a nice kid, man. He's a knife is all he wants for his birthday is a balloon.
But so he started selling there were some Rakhis in our building a while ago, and these Rakhis were made out of gobar.
Okay.
You know these organic gobar Rakhis?
No, haven't heard of them. But
I'm telling you.
Don't be telling the brother who's getting it tied on his wrist.
he went, so he saw it, and he just went and he went door to door and he sold it. And I was surprised, because his grandmother was like, "Who's really going to buy gobar Rakhis?" And she didn't buy it from him, but he sold it, And I think it's that simple, just asking.
बेचने वाला चाहिए, सब कुछ बिकता है, Yogesh.
Like you have there behind ask synergies, right? So you just gotta ask.
Yeah, you gotta ask people. I like that.
Ask 100 people, 10 people, 15 people might say yes.
Yeah. I remember that Shah Rukh Khan movie. Which one was it? Where he's this trader guy, I forget the name now. Do you remember? Did you see it?
Boss?
No, not Big Boss. Not Big Boss.
No, not
Rais. Did you watch Rais? So it's all about धंधा कभी छोटा नहीं होता है. Do you remember? One of those sentences that stuck with me after the movie, and it's all about trade, and business and everything. And उसमें उसकी माँ उसको कहती है कि कोई भी धंधा कभी छोटा नहीं होता, which is wonderful. Yogesh, I want to move to your speaking, to your journey as a motivational speaker. Tell us how did you move from having the sales entrepreneurial mindset, coming from a business family, into moving into what you're doing now, writing, being an author and a keynote speaker? How did the shift happen?
So I need to tell everybody that you were one of the first people, who I consulted with. I like to consult and take advice from everybody. So I remember you shared some valuable inputs with me, so I'm grateful to you. I used to always like speaking. So when I was in the 8th grade, before the 8th grade, I'd never spoken on stage. And I had shifted schools. And in the 8th standard, the principal called me up because I had shifted schools and I was the only student who spoke French. So he called me and he said, Yogesh, can you go on stage and read a poetry? And when the principal says, can you, it means you should, right? I will. And
it's like the wife saying, honey, can you pick up some vegetables coming back from the market?
Pick up some You mean, yeah, of course. I say yes. And I write a poetry down. It's written, it's not just off the mind. And I say, okay, I'll go on stage. I said, okay, I'm nervous, but one good thing is nobody understands French. So even if I screw up, chal there, no problem. Nobody knows what I'm going to do.
Right.
So I go, I have this paper, and I walk on stage, super nervous. So my legs are shaking, my palms are sweaty, my heart is beating hard. And I go and start reading. 15 seconds, 30 seconds, as you're in the moment, the nervousness goes away. And after 1 minute, I was fine. And, it was like 2-3 minute poetry. And in the end of it, I felt nice. People were clapping. Some people made fun of me. But I liked the process, And so since school, so I would take part in a lot of elocutions, debates. And I really enjoyed it. But the first time I got paid for speaking was, so there was summer vacation. So I grew up, I was born in Mumbai, but I grew up in Tehran, in Iran.
Okay.
And,
Tehran. Oh, wow.
Yes. And we had a very nice, the school I shifted to, it had a very nice Gurdwara. It was attached to the Gurdwara. And we used to go there to pray. And also for the nice langar, so it was, it's a very old school. And, because if you look at India, say 100 years ago or 150 years ago, we shared the border with Iran. Because Pakistan was a part of India. So there, there is a strong Sikh community there.
Yeah, pre-partition, right.
Yes, pre-partition. And even in fact, Guru Nanak ji had gone to Iran.
Yes. And there's a sizable Sikh community in Iran and a lot of Gurdwaras as well.
Yes, when he was there, he had gone to Saudi, and when I'm straying off the topic, but he had traveled, and back in the day, before planes, before cars, And in those days, everybody had told him, don't go to Saudi, don't go to Iran, don't go to Iraq. But he said, no, my message is of peace, my message is of love. And he went there. People welcomed him. So anyway, the first time I got paid for speaking was, so I shifted back to Mumbai for higher studies. So I was there at the age of 16, then I shifted back to study. And there was summer vacation. So summer vacation, I went there. And I had this thought in my mind, I need to do something productive. I want to do something productive and, I want to make money in my summer vacation. And I went there, and I think ideas really help you move ahead. So I had this idea in my head, and I was going in the elevator. And in the elevator, there was a man, and he was carrying books. And it was like learn to speak English, because in Iran, English is not there. They don't communicate it so well. English class. I just asked him, English class. And he said, yes, I am going to English class. He was a little hesitant. He was a little that. I said, okay. I asked him, what if I can teach you English in 30 days? Would you like that?
The salesman in you is once again.
I just asked him,
English सीखिए केवल 30 days में with you. Right, okay.
So, because, I know the classes there are too, it's just theory, and they don't really get a chance to express themselves. He said.
Right.
By that time, the lift had reached down. He knew my name. Yeah, I knew his name. And he was hesitant. And he said, yeah, but how much will you charge me? So I just told him, I'm converting it to you into dollars. I told him in riyals, which is the local currency. I told him around $300 a month. So he said, that's too high. I said, okay, how much would you want it for? So he says, can you make it, $250? He just, that's negotiation. And whenever somebody tells you, can you make it?
It's not bad considering he was your first student, Yogesh.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
It's good, right? And when somebody negotiates, I like it, because if somebody tells you your prices are great, probably they're not going to buy from you.
Right.
If somebody says, बहुत अच्छे price है, that means probably he's not going to buy, but because he's negotiating.
That means he's interested, right.
I said, I can make it 200 for you. So he was a little taken aback, Some of you might be thinking, Yogesh is a terrible negotiator. If the guy is paying you 250, why do you want to give it to him at 200? I said, I'll make it 200 if you get at least one person along.
Okay.
If you come along, it's 300. So if you get one person along, I said, go to your class, ask your friend circle, anybody, you can get, the more the merrier. It's 200, but if you come alone, 300. But irrespective of that, let's strike a deal. Give me $1 or whatever you have. And I'll see you in the morning. I live on the 6th floor. So I took some token money from him. And that's also very important. When things are hot, you gotta say yes.
And take some token money.
So you get some, whether you're selling an apartment or anything, it's a commitment. Whether you take 1 rupee or 100 rupees, it's a commitment, right? So if the person is about to back out, you could send him a snap or call him and say, I have the token money, send me the balance. And I take that amount. Next day, I get dressed up. I used to wear like t-shirts. I still wear t-shirts, but in class you got to look a little professional. And my hair was all spiked up back in the day. That was the style. Your hair is still kind of spiked up.
This is my hairdresser got a little carried away. He said, sir, lockdown hai. 15-20 din ka lockdown.
But you got a haircut.
I did. He came over to my place. That's the arrangement I have in place since the COVID thing started. And he got a little carried away this time. So
no, it's nice.
The army, the military look.
It's good. So, so the next morning, I dressed up. I put on a shirt, tucked in my trousers. And I told my mom, dad, my sister. I don't know, maybe this one guy comes, maybe gets like a couple of other people. And the bell rings, and this guy comes in, and the bell keeps ringing because this guy has gone and told that there's this person from India. He's guaranteed us to teach English, and and I told him if I can't teach you, don't pay me. I told him that, and he comes along, and 50 of these guys come in. So he comes with his wife, with his kids, and other people. So we have 50 people coming in down, and we don't have place in our house, so we have to sit.
Wow.
I said, we sit Indian style, so we made them sit. Some of them couldn't sit, cross-legged, but many of them could. So we had chairs.
Right.
And I said we have only 2 rules in the class. So the first rule is anybody who speaks in any other language but English will be fined. So if you speak in any other language, Persian, any other language, you will be fined. And the reason for that is because when you pay a fine, if you break a signal, you pay a fine, at least for some time you're cautious till that memory goes away.
No, of course.
And the second rule is, I said, we'll have a lot of fun. So we won't speak about anything boring, we'll just have a lot of fun. And we would meet every day and we would speak about everything. So somebody would speak about life, anything, And it was a lot of fun. We shared ideas. I got to learn from them. And at the end of the month, all of them were speaking English. And the thing is, a lot of times people are just hesitant or afraid. But like as a kid, if you look at your daughters or if you look at my son or we look at ourselves, we didn't speak like that. I blabbered. I would go aka, gika, guka, papa, mama. And we would not be hesitant, what will X think or Y. And if you want to learn a new language or do anything, just get naked, get rid of your shame, be shameless, and just say, I'm here to learn and I might make mistakes.
That is fantastic. Some very powerful takeaways, if I may just take a couple of moments from your journey of starting by teaching English in Iran while you were living in Iran. I think one of the first things is start. Not many people start. You get so many phone calls from aspiring speakers, entrepreneurs, so many of the people, they're planning. And what you did was you made your first offer to somebody who was just walking by, say, I'll teach you English. So start, that's the lesson number one. Lesson number two is believe in yourself. So even though you were not like the English teaching pro, you believed in yourself and you said, I have a safety valve, and your safety valve is take your money back if it doesn't work, right? So you believed in yourself. You took that risk and you move forward. I think my number 3 takeaway from this particular thing that you narrated is resources will never be perfect. So many of your students were sitting on the floor learning English. And as long as you're adding value, resources are not perfect, start anyway. And then word of mouth spreads. And I like this thing about, if people are negotiating with you, that means they are interested in buying. From a sales perspective, that's really, really good. And also, if they've expressed interest, get some money down so that they can now freeze in their interest and there's no buyer's remorse and things like that. So thank you, Yogesh, for sharing that with us. How did it move from there? How did it blossom over the years from there into corporate keynote speaking over the years?
So, actually, most of the stuff I did, like even in college, I was very fascinated by, I love meeting people, interacting with people, helping in whatever way I can. So even in college, I would do a lot of things. So I used to write in college. So there used to be a magazine called Jam. It was started by Rashmi Bansal.
Oh, of course.
An author, Rashmi Bansal.
Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish, right? Yes. And all those interesting books,
So I used to always contribute. So I used to write for articles, Chicken Soup for the Soul. So I loved sharing ideas. And at the same time, I also loved business. So I started, I used to do a lot of real estate deals. So, real estate brokerage, that led to money, investing. And business had always been like a passion for me. And I did not do a lot of corporate speaking till I spoke to you, which is around
in 4 or 5 years.
4 years ago,
Yeah.
I wouldn't do a lot of corporate speaking. It was largely, because it was largely business, and along with that, you'll get some college would invite you, somebody would invite you. Please share your ideas on business, and that's how it started. So I had a lot. So I used to do like in college. I still remember I posted a snap of it. I was just going through my cupboard. There used to be these, events, and at these events, promoters. And I remember there was a car being launched called the Ford Endeavour.
Very popular here in Punjab.
I know, the Punjabis like big cars.
Yeah, we love our SUVs,
Punjabis are actually very good spenders, I must say that.
Yeah. True.
They are very good.
Every luxury brand that comes in the country, we make sure they have an outlet in Chandigarh or Ludhiana to start with. We spend way beyond our means.
Yes, so Sindhis have other thing, like when we were kids, we were taught, never spend from your principal. Always spend from interest.
Okay.
So build up your capital, and whatever, whatever interest you make, or if you buy a property, spend from the rent you make.
Interesting. But किसी को rent भी देना है ना और interest भी देना, and that happens to be us guys. The Punjabis are usually paying the rents and the interest on the amount we borrow.
So, because because Punjab has been nature rich, right? Resource rich. We have got agriculture, but we did not have land. We did not have resources. So that's why you need to think, okay, what can we do to maximize that? Because if I buy a luxury watch or a car, it will depreciate. But if I buy an asset, even if it's a small property or anything, it will give me income. Or if you buy a luxury car, rent it out and make the money and then write off the depreciation in taxes. But anyway,
we'll come to that. I have questions about your financial money advice also. I have a question for that as well. But yeah.
So there was this Ford Endeavour car, and I used to work as a day guy, who just sits on the stall, and people come in, you show them the car. But even in those days, I was so excited, I actually sold the car. So the guys with me, they said, you're going to get paid 1,500 rupees a day, no matter what you do. I said, yeah, but I still love it. The brand is paying me. Let me make the most of it. And, I used to do a lot of these things, and you make some money, but you gain a lot of ideas, exposure. And I think speaking comes with your experience, with your real world experience. So I'm not the most polished speaker, but it just comes from your experience.
And I think when it comes from your experience rather than from a theoretical perspective, it's more deeper, it's more practical. People can relate to it because you've stripped away all the jargon. You're not trying to portray it as if, okay, this has to sound complicated. Just like I was doing an interview with another wonderful gentleman who is a college professor in English, and we talked about how with, in colleges in India and other things, it's such a prevalent notion that if I have to go on stage and speak, the sort of vocabulary I should be using should be very impressive. I got to look for the tough words, and people should have to open the dictionary later on just to impress them with my oratory skills. And he said that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to public speaking and motivational speaking and what we do is also that, you need to have those complex models and those elaborate slides and research pieces backed up by several authentic universities and things like that. And what we often overlook, while all that is welcome, if you can simplify that. If I can't make sense of a Stanford piece of research, it's useless to me. If you can simplify it, and if it's coming from your experience, it's already simplified because you've lived it. So you cannot make it complex. And so thank you for sharing that. And, you spoke about going on stage to recite this poem in French when you were in school, and you spoke about teaching English and other things. Public speaking, I want to talk about that, Yogesh, now. It's a huge fear. Especially in youngsters, youngsters across the world, but in the Indian subcontinent, we have this another thing. You've got to know your regional language, like your mother tongue, like for me, Punjabi, or you're in Mumbai, Marathi. You've got to be well-versed in Hindi, of course, is the national language. And then you must be very fluent and top-notch in English. So these are just your languages. I was joking with somebody the other day. I said, okay, well, we don't even consider English as a foreign language. So we got 3 domestic languages. And then on top of it, if your kid goes to a fancy school, you add on French, German, Italian, French, or Spanish, or whatever it happens to be, right? So now with the huge amount of pressure on these young minds, of course, they struggle to, find that confidence to express their views. And there is a lot of memorization in the Indian learning system. We believe, even in some of the best schools, even when I listen to debates, I can feel that these lines have been rehearsed umpteen number of times, and the guy or the girl is not in the moment. He or she is not really listening to what's going on. He or she is just responding with what they learned backstage. So what are your top public speaking tips, especially for youngsters coming from your experience of several years having spoken on stages across the world?
I think the first thing I will tell anybody is speak from your heart. So I never read a script. I never have a PPT. Just how you would speak to your friend.
Okay.
So if I'm sharing something with a friend, how would I speak? I would not memorize anything. Or if I'm speaking to you, right, it's just casual. It's like I'm meeting you as a friend over a cup of tea or coffee. That's the first thing. The second thing,
speak from the heart is your first, right? Okay.
Second thing is see how you can help the other person. So put yourself aside and see, okay, what is your central idea? And you don't need to be an expert. You could just be one chapter ahead. You could just be one step ahead. So when I was teaching English, I was not an expert on English, but I had a little more experience than somebody. It's like anybody, like about your camera setup, right? I'm assuming you are not an expert at cameras. You are not an expert. But what you shared with me was something valuable. So I said, okay, that's a good thing, and I'll go and implement it. So if you can share something with somebody that helps them, that's just two things. Speak from your heart. And it's okay. People will criticize you. If there are 1,000 people, or 100 people, or 10 people, not all 10 have to love you. People will walk out. People have walked out during my sessions. People have, been rude. People, whatever. Okay. People are free to express. And you don't need everybody to love you. If everybody loved you, you would have 7.6 billion people loving you. Or 7.6 billion.
Too many to handle.
Yeah, too many. So accept that, So accept that, there will be some people who criticize you. Some of the criticism might be right. Some of it might not be right. But just, go out and share your message like your friend.
I like that. The speak from the heart part, the number one thing that you shared. And of course, in doing so, as I already said, you strip away the jargon, you strip away the complexities. And the second part about see how you can add value, and you don't really have to be the world's leading authority on that subject as long as you're a couple of chapters ahead, a few steps ahead. So you're going with not a I'm here to impress you point of view, you're going to I'm here to help you point of view, which are two very different paradigms. And when you go with the intention of helping people, suddenly that weight goes away from your shoulders of, I have to impress everybody. Everybody must applaud or appreciate or, rise for a standing ovation and things like that. So doing away with all those sort of expectations, as you rightly said, it makes the process much, much more easier. Thank you for sharing that. I like the way that example that you shared, being one step ahead. Even if you're one step ahead and you're sharing that one extra bit of knowledge with the other person with an intent to help, that is wonderful. Thank you. My next question, Yogesh, if you were to go back and give some advice to your 20-year-old self, what would that be? Or if,
my advice would be take a lot more risk.
Take a lot more risk? Okay.
A lot more risk. Take a lot more risk. And, spend your money more. Spend more of your money in things, in experiences, because you can make that money back. I would say that, take a lot more risk.
Thank you. That's good. I like that. Now, talk to us about the happinaire model. I've heard about become the millionaire, and you talk about being the happinaire. What's this whole philosophy about, and how can I implement it? The happinaire model.
If you go on Google, if any of your audience goes on Google and just types happinaire meaning, they just type happinaire meaning, they'll get a post. So this is a post from 2008, 15th February. I was meditating and I got this word happinaire. And I said, and I just wrote it down and I wrote a post around it. And I used to run a blog. I love writing. And, we think we want that car or we want that toy car or we want so many things, we want. I was saying I used to run a blog and I just got the word happinaire. And I believe, we run behind so many things, and it's also, right, if I don't have food in my stomach, I cannot think about other things. But I feel the underlying thing in life is we all want to be happy.
Right.
And that is what the happinaire way is about, And one way to be happy is really to keep growing. If every moment you're growing, you're learning. So gradually you rise up. So for example, if you look at man, you look at anybody, what are our basic desires? Our basic desires would be survival. When I was 5 years old, it was survival, right? I have to make money because I got to eat food, right? Or anybody, you are in college, you got to get a job or you got to start something because you need to make. But as you move up, so you move up the ladder, after that you might want, physical intimacy. You might want love, you might want a partner, you might want a girlfriend, a boyfriend, get married. Right? But as you move up, as you move up the ladder, you want more. So you want to learn, you want to enlighten your mind, you want to read poetry by Rumi. I've heard some of your beautiful poetry. So you want to learn more. As you move up further, now you think about your spiritual needs, what's the meaning of life, and that's what the Happy On Air is about, It's just taking all these things, making it simple, giving our best. Each one of us, I believe, if we give our best, help people out in whatever way possible, we feel a sense of gratitude, we feel nice, and that's what it is.
I like what you said about progress, and I thoroughly believe in that. Now, not every day are you going to make a lot of money, right? Some days you make money. If you're an entrepreneur, you strike a deal, you close a contract, or if you're a salaried professional, you get your salary, you get your bonuses, et cetera, or the stock market, goes up, really stock market is on fire and you make a lot of money on your stocks, etc. But that doesn't happen every day. And I like what you said about growth. And when we are experiencing growth, I thoroughly believe in that. I teach that in my programs as well. And I think Harvard Business Review published an article too called the growth principle, which is if human beings are experiencing growth in any which way, in the work that you're doing, in how you feel about yourself, in your health, in your relationships, in how you use your time and things like that. If you're experiencing growth, you are experiencing happiness. And this totally resonates. There's a book that I really love, Yogesh. It's called Flow by Professor Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. It's a little academic in nature, but in Flow, he talks about this state of mind where we lose a sense of time, where we lose our self-consciousness and we are one with that moment. We're not thinking about the past. We're not worried about the future. We're in the moment. We're one with the moment. And he talks a lot about that the flow. When we are in the state of flow, we are experiencing growth. And he writes in that book that happiness is not something to be pursued. It's not like I want to make $1 million. I have to chase $1 million and make $1 million. Now he says, happiness is not to be pursued, it ensues, which means it is the outcome of other activities. And we so often confuse it. If I'll do this, I'll experience happiness. I'll do that, I'll experience happiness. And on the contrary, as you rightly said, it is the outcome of certain things that we do. It's how we spend our time. It's whether we are spending our time on the things that we love or not. And that is beautifully said. Wonderful model there. And you pronounce it the Happy On Air.
Happy On Air, yeah, like billionaire, millionaire.
Okay, fantastic. Very good.
When you talk about flow, it's true. You look at, so for example, let's say when you're on stage, or right now, I can sense you are in a state of flow. Mm-hmm. You love what you're doing, you're enjoying what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It's the same, you look at a singer, you look at an engineer, you look at a surgeon. Right. When I speak to a surgeon, they say, the happiest moment is when we are doing stuff inside the human heart or brain. And for them, that is flow because there's no mobile, there's no disconnection, there's nothing. You're right, the act of doing it. And many times we also fail. So like I started a solar energy company, I failed, but the process was happy. So while I might have faced setbacks, I might have lost money, I'm happy about that process. It's like going up a mountain, when you're walking up, you're huffing, you are sweating. Sometimes a thorn might get stuck in your foot. That's all. It's not.
But you're doing it for the joy. You're doing it for the joy of doing it. The activity in itself is so rewarding. And that was going to be my next question to you, Yogesh, as we have little time left now. My next question to you is, what is the most rewarding part of the work that you do now? What is that? When do you get that? Wow, it's all worth it.
I like it when somebody says, I followed this and it helped me out. It really impacted my life in whatever way, positive. I like that. So somebody says, Yogesh, I heard this or I read this and it helped me. I'm sure you also must be experiencing this a lot. What's it for you?
Similar, when I hear that the work that I do has been able to impact somebody else's life, or it's external, it's both external and internal. Internal could be, I was struggling with a challenge or struggling with, some aspect of the work that we do, and we were able to achieve a breakthrough. We found a way forward. We had an aha moment, and I'd be like, wow, yes, this was so rewarding. Like we've been struggling with the various pieces of technology to put together our virtual setup in place. And it's been quite an interesting journey, a steep learning curve. We didn't know a thing about what we're doing today. We did not know a thing about this 6 months ago. So learning all about it, getting the equipment in place, doing those multiple tests with it, so many failed experiments, so many embarrassing moments. And then finally it's like, wow, it works, and then you look for the next challenge. So solving problems, some chapter is closed, some problem is done now, and me or somebody else has experienced progress due to that. That's a very rewarding moment for me. And the more practical, if it has real world ramifications, the better it is. So, of course, I love it when I bring a smile to somebody's face, or I lift up somebody's moods, or or emotions, and that's great. But if there has been something better than that, if they have been able to, if some person has made a right career decision, thanks to something that I said, or thanks to a video that they watched, or another person wants to live his life in a different way, thanks to, again, some trigger. And what we offer as trainers and speakers, we offer triggers. That's what I believe in. It's not like some guy just listened to my video and all of a sudden decided, and I'm going to change my life. I'd like to claim that, but that's not true. I was a trigger. That battle was happening in his head long before. And then that video came forward. And, that video offered him that little push. The nudge, the nudge that he needed. So yes, that is also very, very rewarding for me. And before we close today, Yogesh, and thank you, you've been very kind with your time. Before we close today, 2 questions. Number 1 is, what is your top money advice to everybody who's watching right now? Since you're like the deal maker ever since you were in your diapers, man. You've been selling toys at the age of 5. So that's my question number 1. Your top money advice, especially to youngsters who often end up spending more than we earn. I'm counting myself in youngsters.
Yeah, you are.
And second is, as we close, who or what is your source of inspiration? What keeps you going? Because the world has this impression, these speakers, they're like born. Every morning they wake up, they're like, wow, everybody jump. This is how they wake up. And they, when they were born in the operation room, and this is what they were doing. Let's do, everybody jump. We're going to change the world. You can become better. This is what the image people have of motivational speakers. Like the moment they were born, they were like, yes, I can do it. So, which is not true. We know it. So we have our tough moments also. So I have 2 questions in closing for you. Number 1, your top money advice, Yogesh. Number 2, who or what inspires you, keeps you going, pulls you through your toughest times?
So the simplest money advice is, if you buy something and it appreciates or give you money, it's good. If it depreciates or takes away money, avoid it in the beginning till you have that,
This single advice is going to make sure that I cancel all my future purchases.
Because it's simple.
But it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah.
If you take, let's say somebody who's 20 is watching this. I'm assuming. Let us say you take 10 years of your life. Right? Now, in this 10 years of your life, what asset you invest in could define the rest of your life. So if you invest in something, let us say you go out and buy a pair of a fancy watch or a car.
Right.
That car will depreciate after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Right? It will depreciate. And now you're constantly in that cycle.
Yeah.
But if you invested in something in 10 years, let us say you invested in an asset. Let us say you invest in an asset. Let us say you are able to buy a property, even if it is with debt, and you give it on rent. I'll give you an example. And this money advice came to me. I believe we can learn from everybody. So when I was in college, I was going in the auto. And I like to speak to people. I said, "Kaise chal raha hai aapka dhanda?" I asked the auto guy. He said, "Nahi, acha chal raha hai." I said, "Aur kya karte ho aap?" So he says, "I have 2 properties in a place called Mira Road, which was that time the outskirts of Bombay." I said, "Okay, how did you buy it?" He said, "मैंने loan लिया बैंक से." I said, "Okay, आपने loan लिया तो क्या होता है?" He said, "मैंने rent पे दिया." He said, "I've given those 2 properties on rent." I said, "कितना कमाते हो आप?" He said, "मुझे अभी कुछ कमाई नहीं है, because the rent was paying off his loan."
Nice.
So whatever rent came, it paid off his loan. I said, "फिर क्यों किया आपने?" He said, "नहीं, 10 साल के बाद that property will become mine, because the rent which is coming has paid off the EMI. So I'm not doing anything. The person who's living on rent is paying me a rent which goes to the bank."
Wow.
And after 10 years, this property is mine. And after 10 years, because of inflation, because the government keeps printing money, the asset value would go up. The property would increase, and now I will make rent on that increased asset value. And now I have 2 properties. So even if I don't drive the auto, those 2 properties give me money.
Wow.
And now that money can go into buy a 3rd property. So
that's smart.
If you look at say 7, 8, it takes 7 to 8 years of your life. If 8 years or maximum say 10 years of your life, you make the right financial. After those 10 years, those assets work for you. So then you can go. So now the rent is coming in. Yeah, I want to buy something. I want to go on a holiday, XYZ place. Now I am spending from the income, the rent, or the interest of my money. And why? An asset is better because of inflation in India. If you keep your money in the bank, even if you make 6%, 7%, 8%, inflation is much higher. So put it in assets. I have people, they say, but we can't afford, buying a house. It's okay. I know somebody in our office, he bought a car. Okay? He bought a car and he rented out his car. So that car was giving him an income. So you start small, If you can't afford to buy it in the main city, go on the outskirts.
Right. And so invest in assets, right? That's.
Invest in an asset that gives you return. Invest in an asset that will appreciate and has a cash flow. I like assets that have a cash flow.
Okay.
Gold is good, but a lot of times gold will appreciate, but gold doesn't give you so much cash flow. So if something has a cash flow, let us say it's a lean period, Let us say you lose your job, or let us say business is slow. If you have an asset that's bringing in the cash flow, mentally you're still relaxed, right? Your light bill is paid for, all those things are paid.
Yeah. I get you.
And also, a sense of deriving happiness. Again, happiness comes in because my happiness doesn't come if I'm wearing a suit or if I have, an expensive watch or an expensive car or a house. If I'm happy from within, I don't need to chase those things for happiness.
And I love what you said. I love what you said about the car example. And because if I go beyond my means and buy a Range Rover today, which is a nice white Range Rover, right? It's been popularized.
You like
by.
I can see the smile on
well, is all the Punjabi singers they talk about it. India, Canada, Ranja do rakhi hai. But let's say if I spend 60 lakhs on buying a vehicle, I totally get that example. A, I've blocked my money. B, it's going to get depreciation. And number 3, I would probably never ever be comfortable driving a car which is lower than a Range Rover, right? So I can only go up higher, not lower. And now it's a vicious cycle. I'm paying the interest on it, and there's depreciation, and there is service costs, and there's maintenance costs. I like that. What you said about investing, and especially for young people.
And a lot of times, once you sit in a Range Rover, you associate your identity with the car. Right now, if you have 60 lakhs, okay, or you don't even have 60 lakhs, you can go invest in an asset of 60 lakhs, which easily gives you 9%.
Right.
Plus, the asset appreciates. So on that 60 lakhs, you can easily make 15%, 16%. So after 10 years, now that 60 lakhs you have recovered, and that 60 lakhs has become 1.2 crores. And now you're making 9% on that 1.2 crores. So you are making, say...
I could never go that far in that calculation, but thank you. But thank you. This is why I enjoy listening. The beginner's mindset is very important, right? Sometimes we think we know what we ought to do in a certain situation, and then some simple advice can challenge that whole paradigm. So thank you. I appreciate that.
I never buy luxury cars. Because it's a waste.
Yeah. So what we will show to the world when the Google search is happening, Simarjeet Singh lifestyle or Yogesh Chhabria lifestyle. It's top number 2 or 3 for me. You type in Simarjeet Singh, it's number 1 wife. People are very interested in knowing about my married life. Number 2 will be like Simarjeet Singh net worth. Number 3 is Simarjeet Singh lifestyle. So this is what everybody thinks what Yogesh and Simarjeet are doing on a typical day. And sitting on a beach and drinking a nice martini and, I live in the best resort in the world. I have a private jet parked outside and wow, that's...
No, but your lifestyle can be good, right? I mean, if you're free from stress, if you're free from EMI...
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. What's the point of having a private jet parked outside if I am taking a sleeping pill to go to bed, man? What's the point, right? And if that happens, if a private jet happens, it happens. But it's not at the cost of your inner peace. I'm not against material abundance, and I'm sure you're not against it either. It enhances life. As they always say, money cannot solve all the problems, but it does solve a lot of the problems. So money is welcome. Only then you can help other people. Lincoln said it best. He said the worst way to help poor people is to be one of them. I love those words.
Exactly.
Man, the worst way to somebody who's fallen in a ditch is to fall into the ditch yourself. I'll help you. I'm here with you. What the hell am I going to do if you're with me? We need to get out, right? So in order for me to help someone else out, I need to be out of the ditch myself. So the same thing about money. I welcome material abundance, but I think it's also very important that the false ideas that are especially fed to our youngsters, and they make some few mistakes. Like credit card debt, Yogesh, is a huge problem in the United States. Huge problem. It's a never ending, because if you calculate the percentage you're charged on an annual basis, sometimes it runs into 20 to 25%. And a youngster who's taken maybe 3 or 4 or 5,000 rupees loan on a credit card will find that a large chunk of his or her salary will just go in paying off the credit card. And if it doesn't, then his credit score goes down. Then it's even more expensive for him to get credit. So it's a vicious cycle there. And I think it was important to have that conversation. Thank you, Yogesh. And before we say goodbye, very important, the last question: what keeps you going? Who or what inspires you?
Everybody. I learn from everybody, right? I told you that I called you. I take inspiration from everybody around. I learn from you, from everybody. I like reading a lot. I like reading a lot, and I think we can learn from all great people.
What's your go-to exercise, Yogesh, when you're feeling a little low? On the day that you're feeling a little low, what's your go-to thing?
I love to